Madonna Louise Veronica Ciccone never made any secret of her ambition to become the most successful female recording artist of all time. For 2 decades, she has provoked storms of outrage and controversy through her songs, videos, stage performances, film roles, and books, deliberately provoked as part of a superb exercise in self-promotion. Now, her phenomenal work rate and extraordinary ability to reinvent herself have seen her safely through to iconic status. Does she deserve it? Or is hers no more than average talent hyped by brilliant marketing and constant repackaging into a career that dazzles but has no real substance? She has certainly succeeded in her ambition. Her album sales topped 200 million, and her 2006 Confessions tour grossed close to $200 million, the highest-earning concert tour ever for a female artist. Whatever else she is, Madonna is truly the queen of pop. Melita Morgan is a Madonna lookalike. She is one of the millions who see her as a great artist and role model, and she has made a career impersonating her.
There's something much more than an artiste and a musician about Madonna. If she wants something, she'll go out and get it, you know. I love the fact that she inspires women, and she has done a lot over the years to help women to feel, you know, there's a lot more to them than meets the eye, and they can achieve so much more if they really, really want to, you know. And I think she's done that to so many women.
Madonna is totally awesome. She's so great. She's gorgeous. She's so gorgeous. And she's so unique.
In 1985, the term wannabe was coined to describe the avid fans who seek to act, dress, and talk like their idol, Madonna. So who is the person who generates this extraordinary loyalty and adulation? How and why did she achieve her status as a megastar? For a singer whose career has been marked by startling changes of direction, Madonna's musical roots are firm. She was born a Motown girl. Her father, Silvio Ciccone, one of 6 sons of an Italian immigrant family, settled in Detroit, Michigan, and found work as an engineer with the Chrysler Automotive Corporation. Her French-Canadian mother, Madonna Fortin, was 3 months pregnant in February 1958 when Michigan suffered heavy snowfalls that made national news. She was carrying her 3rd child, a girl, who would be christened Madonna Louise. The car industry was always vulnerable to strikes, steel shortages, and economic downturns. Layoffs were an inescapable fact of life for many who were employed in the automotive plants of Detroit. And years later, the girl who was born on August 16, 1958, used that gritty background to embellish her life story.
There's a little bit of a Madonna myth that she came from quite a poor family, and that it was a rags to riches kind of, you know, path to fame. But really, she wasn't poverty-stricken, but then again, it wasn't really a rich family. And the whole ethos of the family was the work ethic and discipline and chores. And
I think sometimes taking elements from that type of environment and then trying to show, well, I ran away from that, I survived that. I think that might be a type of rags to riches. It's the rags of being imprisoned to the freedom of being totally liberated.
The truth was that Silvio Ciccone, known as Tony to his friends, worked hard to provide a comfortable, middle-class life for his growing family. There was a lot of noise, laughter, and sibling rivalry among the 6 children. There were also strict rules of behavior. Madonna, who always hated to be told what to do, was the defiant one.
Madonna used to put on lots of little shows for her family at home. There was the famous Shirley Temple one where she used to dance on the table and flick up her skirt and show her pants to the family. And this was her means of gaining attention from her parents, because she was one of 6 children. And she was the one who most wanted the attention of her mother and father. And so I think she realized fairly early on that a little bit of a naughty gesture was going to do the trick, and it always did.
Whether it's, you know, physically, emotionally, whatever. We think of exhibitionism as being kind of crude. And I think what Madonna's done is turned exhibitionism into an art form, essentially.
That's really been the thread throughout her whole life, is just to be a performer. And it might be tasteful to some, it might be tacky to others, but that's Madonna.
Motherhood has a special significance for Madonna because her own mother died of breast cancer in 1963 at the cruelly young age of 30. Madonna, who was only 5 at the time, has said that the anguish she felt left me with a kind of loneliness and an incredible longing for something, claiming that this is the root cause of why her life has been so driven.
She decided there and then that she was going to be the best at everything. She stated that having been dealt that sort of blow at that young age, that nothing could ever hurt her so seriously again. And this gave her the outer shell that she still has to a large extent. And it manifested itself in much of her later work.
That hard shell protected her through most of her career. The softer Madonna that exists under the hard shell is something we have only come to see in relation to children now that she has some of her own.
I can see that I'm making a very good impression on you.
Her relationship with her own father soured after her mother's death and remained rocky for many years. Dance was at the center of Madonna's life through her teens. In 1972, she enrolled at the Rochester School of Ballet, which was run by the man whom Madonna was to describe as my mentor, my father, my imaginative lover, my brother, Christopher Flynn.
He saw something in her that he thought was very special. She, for her part, felt that she had discovered a niche for herself and that ballet was the thing that she'd been looking for in her life. So Christopher Flynn later moved to the University of Michigan, so he encouraged her to apply for a scholarship there, which she did, and she won her scholarship, and she stayed there for a year and a half.
She enjoyed her time at college, but knew that if she was going to make it as a performer, she had to head for where all the action was, New York. In July 1978, a few weeks short of her 20th birthday, she boarded a plane and flew to New York. Outside her family, the person who missed her most was a gifted drummer who played in a band in Detroit. He and Madonna had become an item after she spotted him working as a nightclub waiter. His name was Steve Bray, and he was struck by what he called her aura of ambition. A few years later, he would discover just how ruthless that ambition could be. The story goes that Madonna arrived in New York with just $37 in her pocket and asked the taxi driver to drop her in the middle of everything. He put her down in Times Square, the heart of the city's pornography, drug, and prostitution district. It was love at first sight. Bold, pushy, and pulsing with energy, the Big Apple was just the place for the girl with the big ambition.
Madonna's escape from Michigan to New York was exactly what she needed to do that in that point in time, coming from such a oppressive living situation and then going to New York where every opportunity is available to you if you work hard enough.
I think Madonna is very much a New York story. I mean, she's one of these people like Andy Warhol, like Truman Capote. You know, it really is the New York dream to come here from nowhere, basically, and invent yourself.
It's, I have to pinch myself. I can't believe it's happening. I'm thrilled. It's happened before in my life, but every time it does happen, I'm still completely gobsmacked by it. So.
She had an advantage in being named Madonna. If you look at Andy Warhol, he came here and had to change his name to Andy Warhol. You know, Madonna just had to come here and be Madonna.
For a while, she worked as a hat check girl in the famous Russian tea room on West 57th Street. Another minimum wage job came to a sticky end when by her own admission, Dunkin' Donuts sacked her for squirting donut jelly over a customer who was hassling her. She found herself a squalid slum to live in, a dilapidated walk-up apartment on 4th Street and Avenue B. It has since been renovated, but when her father came to visit her, there were drunks in the stinking hallway, and the 5th-floor apartment was cockroach city. He was horrified and begged her to come home.
Her brother Christopher has since said that Madonna has built a lot of legend around this period in New York, but at the same time, there's no doubt she actually was very, very poor. She was rifling bins for food, apparently. She was taking like really menial jobs just to make ends meet.
Remembering this period in her life, Madonna herself claims to have eaten out of garbage cans and sat beside the fountains in Lincoln Center in tears, writing in her diary about her lonely life in the big city. At least she didn't look out of place. Punk was in full swing. The Sex Pistols had just imploded in the middle of their U.S. tour. Not long after her arrival in the city, Sid Vicious was charged with the stabbing of Nancy Spungen in the Chelsea Hotel. At first, she joined the beautiful nobodies who flocked to the legendary Studio 54 Club, hoping to be picked to mix with the glamorous celebrities inside. Soon, she became a regular guest. Drugs were rampant, and the club was notorious for just about every kind of excess. More than a quarter of a century later, Madonna was to recreate the decadent style of Club 54 for her Confessions on a Dance Floor tour. For a while, she worked as a model, posing nude for photographers. It was better money than waiting tables, but, as with many other female artists before and since, the pictures, tame as they were, came back to haunt her once she became famous. She continued to take dance classes and grabbed whatever work she could find, including a period working in Paris as a dancer and backup vocalist for Patrick Hernandez. People remember her as talented, hard-working, focused, and determined to hold center stage. But she quickly realized that in the brutally competitive world of dance, it might take her several years to break into a major company. She simply hadn't got time, and dance was only a means to the stardom she craved. She learned to play guitar and drums and started singing with a band. Soon she was fronting it. It caused friction. The band saw her as a member of the group. She wanted to be the main attraction. In the same year, 1979, Madonna took her first acting role in Stephen Lewicki's A Certain Sacrifice, a low-budget soft porn movie that featured her as a dominatrix indulging in human sacrifice. The film was released 2 years later and quickly died a death, but the acting role gave her a fetish image that she was later able to exploit. After the break with Breakfast Club, Madonna took up again with her old friend from Michigan, Steve Bray. They worked and lived in the Music Building, a collection of rehearsal halls and studios where a lot of bands hung out. For a year, he and Madonna wrote songs that she performed around New York with Steve backing her on drums. The band was called Emmy, much to Madonna's disgust. She thought it should be called Madonna. The sound was punky, hard-edged rock and roll. When Emmy didn't seem to be going anywhere, she found herself increasingly frustrated.
If she was working in this band with other musicians, you can imagine that it was probably very difficult to have her own ideas of who she was and the types of songs that she wanted to sing, and then have the other members who were men and probably had a difficult time sort of dealing with a very strong female personality. I think that's probably what led to the dissolution of the band.
After splitting with Emmy, Madonna signed with Camille Barbone, an agent who had an office in the Music Building. The two became very close, and Camille invested a lot of time and money showcasing her client. She can also take credit for creating the first Madonna wannabes, paying young girl fans to accessorize themselves like their idol. She also organized a new band to back her client. Naturally, it was called Madonna.
Madonna reportedly flirted outrageously. Camille responded by paying for everything that Madonna needed or wanted, did everything she could to further her career. But Madonna, again, was quick to dump Camille when she decided that rather than pursuing rock music, she was going to pursue kind of funky dance music. And so Camille was another one who was sort of left heartbroken by the loss of the friendship more than the loss of the client, really.
After a blazing row with Camille, Madonna walked out and returned to her old friend and lover, Steve Bray. She took odd jobs, including singing backing vocals for Ozzy Osbourne. Meanwhile, she and Steve were writing songs and producing demos that Madonna would hawk around New York's club DJs. It was at Manhattan's Danceteria Club on West 21st Street that she pitched a demo at resident DJ Mark Kamins. He was impressed, all the more so because he'd watched Madonna dancing in the club and understood that her modest vocal talent was matched by a phenomenal visual presence. Kamins tried the tape out on his audience and was knocked out by the reception that the song Everybody received from the club crowd. He offered to secure Madonna a record deal and produce her first album. She became his lover. It was the start of a passionate, fruitful, but short-lived relationship. Kamins used his connections to get Michael Rosenblatt at Warner Brothers Records to listen to a demo tape. He liked what he heard and offered her a record deal, subject to approval by Seymour Stein, president of Warner's Sire Records. Stein was in hospital recovering from heart surgery. Madonna went to see him. She was unfazed to find him sitting by his bed in his underpants with a drip in his arm. She turned on the charm. Stein liked what he saw. The deal was done on the spot and sealed by Stein kissing her hand. Madonna was on her way.
At first, you would not have known that this woman was going to be a major star, because her first single, Everybody, didn't even have a picture sleeve, and it didn't make the Hot 100. It was a dance hit.
Her music has always been dance music. That's, you know, if you have to classify it as any one thing, that's what she makes, is dance music and club music.
Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of Madonna. Steve Bray and Mark Kamins both saw it as payback time for all the work they'd put in to promote her career. Both expected to produce her first records. Both were disappointed. When Sire offered to bankroll an album, Madonna ditched them and gave the job to the hottest producer around, Steve Lucas.
Anytime somebody becomes successful, it's easy for people who were kind of part of it along the way to get resentful or feel like they're not getting enough credit. But I think all those people have also benefited from working with her because she's Madonna.
As she put it herself, she traveled through people. A lot of the people that have had this experience with Madonna have not actually carried a grudge at all. Anyone who went out with Madonna would really know that the deal was her career was the most important thing and everything else came second.
In the event, Madonna didn't like the job Lucas did on the album and handed it over to her new lover, John Jellybean Benitez, to rearrange and remix. The album, titled simply Madonna, was a hit. 5 tracks released as singles made the top 5 in the U.S. dance chart: Everybody, Burning Up, Holiday, Borderline, and Lucky Star.
She was probably underestimated by pretty much everybody when her first album came out, because nobody could have guessed, you know, how determined she was, and also that she, somewhere within herself, you know, had the ability to fulfill all of these ambitions that she very obviously had.
Madonna's arrival on the scene just as the pop video took off as an art form was perfect timing. The video for Borderline, showing Madonna as a street girl toying with the boys, was directed by Mary Lampert, and its success on MTV was the shape of things to come.
People don't really realize this because they lump Michael Jackson and Madonna together as the two early founding iconic stars of MTV. But Michael Jackson had, we now know, just peaked. His greatest work was already done, and Madonna's was just about to begin.
From her very first videos, she was always, you know, she's just a natural in front of the camera. Having the videos made her into Madonna.
Her videos and her being a presence on MTV really helped facilitate the growth of a captive audience.
By 1984, Madonna and Steve Bray had made up their differences and collaborated to write songs for her second album, Like a Virgin. It was an instant hit, catapulting her to the top of the charts. She debuted like a virgin at the MTV Awards in a raunchy performance that saw her rolling around the floor in a wedding veil, bustier, stockings, and garters. She clearly remembered the lesson she had learned as a child when standing on the table to sing Shirley Temple songs. If you want to get attention, flash your panties.